All right, we're back at it in factoring here. If you're like, where's Hardy at? I'm on the back of Factoring 2020. So we'd mentioned as our last problem before, we had x squared minus 36 and found that we could put a 0x in the middle and do it like we normally had been doing with our factoring without a coefficient. However, that actually has an actual name called the difference of two squares. Difference being the minus part, and squares being that both your x times x is x squared, and the number on the end are perfect squares. If you're ever not sure if something's a square, but it looks like a perfect square, smells like a perfect square, on the factoring cheat sheet we kind of talked about a little bit before with the multiplication chart in the back, there's a list of squares here on the front, and sometimes I've been telling people that I'm a fan of literally going on here and being like, okay, these are the actual numbers. Now, I'm not going to do this all the way through, but you can kind of see my point here. So you can look later and say, oh, 36. Oh, that's 6 squared. And I could go back and get a little bit of assistance because, again, this is usable on everything. So just a thought. So when we're doing difference of squares, what I'll typically do is I will quickly write down what I square to get that particular value up at the top. I square x to get x squared. I square 3 to get 9. And then the form is pretty straightforward. It's just first plus second. I call that my first term and that my second. That's why I write them up here. And first minus second. You're like, again, some of you are like, wait a minute. Hardy, did you pull another one of those magic hacks? How is there nothing in the middle? Like when we FOIL, we get stuff in the middle. And that's true most of the time. But in this case, if I do my foiling, so I do first x squared, outer minus 3x, inner positive 3x, and last minus 9. Go combine your like terms. What happens? Negative 3x, positive 3x cancel. Fireworks go off. That's it. So it lets you see that's the correct answer. But like I said, I do think it is worth your while, at least when you're doing the paper and pencil stuff until you get used to it, that you take all the pieces and write down what you're squaring to get them. So like here, I square 2 to get 4. I square x to get x squared. And I square 9 to get 81. Once you have that part down, because again, you're never going to be without having the form. Whether it's here, the form is on your help sheet. There's the difference of squares. Okay? First plus second, first minus second. And we go about our business. Okay? So now, can you always just stick a 0x in the middle of any of these and do it the other way? Sure. Sure. You'd end up with guess and check on this one, though, and I don't know if I want to guess and check. That'd be a pretty big number. Just something to mention. Okay. Other patterns we might possibly encounter. Now, again, perfect square trinomials are slightly more optional with the knowledge, and let me explain why. What I can do is, if I notice right away that my first and last terms are perfect squares, okay? If I notice that this can be 2x and this can be 3, there's one little catch with the perfect square trinomials, though. If you multiply these two values together, okay, I get 6x, and double it, that should be the number in the middle, okay? So here, I could just look at this and be like, okay, so first plus second squared. Or I could write it out, first plus second, first plus second. Those are one and the same. Okay? I'd still have to FOIL either out to get to my answer. Now, if you forgot, let's say you forgot about the pattern. You're like, man, I got so many different other things I'm trying to remember right now. I don't really need to try and remember one more thing. You could just go through and do this with guess and check or slide and divide. So typically when I've taught this before, I usually have about a quarter of my students that are doing guess and check and about 3/4 are doing slide and divide, just because we're creatures of habit. It's something I already know. I want to do it that way. So if I do this with slide and divide, just to show you, you have an option. I would slide the 4 down to the end. If you're like, slide and divide, what's that? You need to go back and watch the first video from this section. So the 4 slides down and multiplies. I do my factoring. I look for my clues. Positive multiply number. Positive add number. So what multiplies to 36 and adds to 12? 6 and 6. Again, no back padding. You are not done quite yet, because we still have to divide here. And some of you are starting to see at this point, man, maybe it's worth it just to know the pattern, because I'm doing a whole lot of work here, and I don't know if I really need to be doing this. Reduce your fraction. Ooh, 3/2. Very nice. Oops, not x over, though. I'm getting gun shy on some of these. I did a boo-boo on a couple of places last week. Luckily, people found them for me. Thank you. And whenever you find an error in one of Mr. H's videos, if you're the first one in, I'm giving you extra credit. So, yeah, look out. I had somebody ask me when I said they'd get extra credit, they're like, if I told you were wrong and I was wrong, are you going to take points from me? No, but don't purposefully just start throwing stuff out there hoping you're going to get extra points out of me. Just saying. Same thing. Okay? So the pattern works. Slide and divide works. Guess and check works. But if you know the pattern, it's a lot faster. Like here, if I notice, hey, 25 is a perfect square. That's 5 with my x. Hey, 4 is a perfect square. That's 2. Now, here's where you do have to be cautious, though, and I didn't mention this in number 13. When you're trying to figure out the sign that goes in the middle, this sign will always match this one. Okay? So if I'm doing this one and I say, ooh, they're both perfect squares, there's my first, there's my second. The symbol in the middle, okay, that plus or minus will be the same sign you get here. If you write it out like we normally do here, you'll notice that right away, but sometimes that's harder to see. So just something there to be thinking about. Again, keep this open as you're doing your worksheets and your online stuff. Get used to it that way. Okay? And sometimes we get multiple layers of things. Now, this is just a mini of our sheet here, and I'm going to remind you of some things here. Okay? Factor out any common terms. This is like, you need to double, triple, star, underline it, highlight it if you have it. Every single factoring problem you do, you need to be checking first to see, are there any common terms? Is there something I can take out? Because A, it's going to keep you from getting to the simplest form of the problem otherwise, and B, sometimes you may not be able to do it if you don't take out the common term. So, with that in mind, I look at number 15. I'm like, ooh, it's a slide and divide. Wait. Any common terms? Oh, well, they're all divisible by 5. Okay, let's get that out of there first. And make sure you're dividing every term there by 5. Now, just by doing that first step, okay, we're going to ignore, this 5 will still be part of my answer, but we're going to ignore it for right now. I have to factor what's in the parentheses, and my life just got a whole lot easier. Because now, it's just a regular diamond problem. It's a regular what multiplies to get the number on the end and adds to get the number in the middle. So the 5 stays hanging out. Don't have it go away. It hasn't gone away. Some people divide it out and think it's gone. It's not gone. Look for my clues. All positive. Okay, all positive. What multiplies to 3 and adds to 4? Like we have a lot of options here. Not really. 3 and 1. Okay. Now, if you did slide and divide with this right away, am I going to do this? Yes. Yes, I am, actually. I just want you to see something. Don't write this down because I don't want you having bad stuff, well, incorrect stuff in your notes. But I want you just to see why it's so important that you take a common factor out right away. Okay. So let's say I don't take out the 5 out. I'm like, nope, slide and divide. There's a number in front. Got to do it. Oh, this could get ugly. Okay, 75. All pluses. Okay, here, let's see. 75. I go to my handy-dandy calculator. I start chugging numbers in. I'm like 1 and 75, 3 and 25, 5 and 15, and then I kind of run out of options. I need two that add up to 20. Okay, no. These two. Plus 5 plus 15. And you're like, okay, I know that's not the answer because I still got to do the divide part. So I do the divide part. You get the two sets of parentheses, okay, that you have, but the 5 has disappeared. It's not there anymore. Now, could you possibly remember that at the end and tuck it in? Maybe. Is the likelihood there that you're going to, though? Probably not. So it's important to get that first term out of there when you're doing these. And then the same on 16. Again, what are they both divisible by? 2. And again, it may not always just be that first number, okay? There may be a smaller number that divides into them, so you have to be aware. Now, hopefully here you look at this, you go, ooh, squares, difference of squares, difference of squares. If not, you can always plug the 0x in the middle, but I'm just saying. So what do I square to get each? Don't lose your 2. That's part of the answer. If it's not there, we're not right. First plus second, first minus second. And does it matter if this is minus and plus or plus and minus? No, it does not. Okay, deep breath. Okay, you have survived the first part of factoring. You're still here. You're still living. The heart's still going. That's good. Hopefully you've been doing your practice before on the introduction to factoring practice that we'd had with the first part of the lesson. So now on the back, let me put some suggestions out there. Okay, mainly on the back, slide and divide. Okay, reverse, FOIL, slide and divide, whichever method you're using. Now, stressing, you have to figure this out. More practice on factoring if needed. You know if you need more practice, okay? This is in there on the key. You can do that. This is not something you have to do, but you got to know if you need practice. Write me and go, I don't like this. Well, are you doing the extra practice there? No. Well, then I'm going to be like, what are you doing? Okay? And then again, even factoring again, I wanted to give you lots of options with the factoring before you got into the online stuff. So you could check things, ask me about stuff, and do it. That's on you, though, to figure out how you want to do it. So we will avoid factoring for a little while coming up in the next couple of lessons. Oh, but it'll be back. We'll see you next time.